this other stuff because I could just make myself crazy from all of the, to have people of color living in such conditions that we have to worry about the things that we worry about, especially like being a Native woman in Anchorage, like worrying about like my safety and like I can't depend on the police to help me if something bad happens, like that kind of thing. Like that is like, that's real. Like that's real stressors in your life, and it's keeping, it's keeping us down. It must be nice to not have to worry about that kind of stuff, or like, or
yeah.
Sorry, it just took a dark turn.
No, but that's the reality of our life right now, though.
Yeah.
No, that's just what it is. Yeah. No, one thing though is one thing that I've realized, and this is quite recently. So it's not like I've known this for a long time. I'm not a savant, Okay. I learned this late in life, is that it's okay. The fact that we are affected by these things, the fact that we are hurt and that we cry and that we are pained and bothered by them, to me that just shows that we're human and that we're normal, because we're supposed to be bothered by something so hurtful. We're supposed to be pained, right, by something that is just so wrong. We don't ever want to feel right about something so wrong. No. I think that's the danger, and I think that's what we need to avoid. It's to get to the point where we don't care anymore, and we're not bothered by it anymore. So the fact that
that's good then
you feel devastated, shows that you're healthy, because it is, it's a famous quote, right? I'm going to paraphrase it. It's no measure of health and well-being to be well adjusted to a sick society. And the fact that you are bothered by a sick society shows that you're healthy.
That's good. That's a good way to look at it. There's a little hope in that. It's like when you lie to your parents and you get busted and you feel terrible about it.
I'm glad you feel terrible, right? Because you're supposed to. That's exactly what it is.
It's like, it's good,
right?
You don't have to hold on to it forever. It's okay that you feel bad in this moment because then you learn, or whatever.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And so I have an episode coming up too on men's health and wellness, because I just don't think we talk about it enough, especially in the Native community, and with all of the social ills around that.
Yeah.
Do you have any comments on that, or like?
Men's
I know
wellness.
That you. Yeah. Well, because so in your book, right, you had a letter to your son.
Yeah.
So which is really cool.
Yeah, no, it's, to me, for me at least, speaking from as a man who, was also raised to uphold like super masculine values and beliefs and attitudes. I've had to do a lot of growing up too, and I still am learning and still in the process of growing. But yeah, there was a point in my life when I thought that, I had to be tough or act tough, or at least maybe even like be violent, or at least show, a potential to be violent, right? I thought those are important characteristics to have as a man, to be respected as a man. And it wasn't until later in life that I realized that I don't need to be violent to show a propensity, for violence to be respected. And that's probably one of the things that I'm trying to teach my my two sons right now is, you can be soft, you can be caring, you can be, you can cry, you can be vulnerable, and those things don't make you less of a man. Instead, they make you a more complete human being, because those are all parts of the human experience. Those are all normal human emotions that you are allowed to have, that you're allowed to feel. You can feel sad, you can feel devastated, you can feel weak, you can feel afraid, you can feel scared, you can feel, hopeless sometimes, and sometimes it's okay, to feel all those things. You're allowed to feel all those things. You're not less of a man, you're not less of a human being if you're feeling those things. And I've had to learn all of those, and I'm still learning them in many ways right now. And I'm just trying to pass that on to my sons, because as you mentioned earlier too, especially here in Alaska, right? When it comes to violence and violence against women, I mean, we're number one in the nation when you look at statistics. And in all of those cases, not in all of those cases, but in almost all of those cases, the perpetrator, of the violence against women are men, right? And research shows that, in pretty much all of these, violence against women cases, the main factor that contributed to violence is power and control, and that the man, wanted to exert some power and control over a woman because for some reason they feel entitled, somehow, to exert some kind of power and control over a woman.
Right.
And I don't want my sons, to grow up feeling like they're entitled in some way, to have power and control over women. And it's difficult, right? Because again, they're boys of color, they're men of color, and in many ways, this society has also kind of broken them down and has taken a lot of their power and a lot of their control away from them, right? And so they might want to get that back. And so to me, what I'm trying to teach my son is, you don't have a right to have power and control over anybody. And being violent over, against women is not the way that you can regain your power. That's not our way toward empowerment. And
when you speak about that, it reminds me of like a lot of our leaders that we had in Barrow or Utkarik about like, the whalers and stuff. And I spoke with Warren Jones a little bit about it on another episode about like the qualities of a leader and leadership and what those are, in, especially in our Native communities and like, especially in Barrow, the whaling captains, a lot of them are not, there because they're trying to flex or like they're trying to be, the best whaling captain there ever was. It's just that they exhibit these qualities that people think that they want to learn from them or they want to support them or they want to be on their team, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my last question that I have, and you're welcome to add whatever else you want. It's funny. So I had this conversation with Tiffany Creed, and then I'm having this conversation with you now. And my original intent for this episode was to not just shine light on it, but to also hear, what are some of the things that we can do better, like as Native communities. So this is my last question: is how can we better support our non-Native community members?
Yeah. Oh, that's a great question. Again, to me, given that these are indigenous lands, I think the rest of us, the onus is on the rest of us to try and build relationships with the indigenous peoples of these lands, and work in solidarity with them. I work a lot with, First Alaskans Institute, and one of the things that they say is what's good for Native people is good for everybody else. And I truly believe that, and I truly value that teaching from them. And so to me, I think as non-Native people, we have that responsibility, as I mentioned earlier. So I kind of am reversing your question a little bit here. I think, though, if I was going to ask the Native folks to do something, and it's not really about them doing something, but it's for the rest of us, again, to listen. Because to me, here's the thing. Again, as an immigrant person, right now we're having like this national immigration debate or conversation. Yeah. Right? And it's hot, and it's been hot. We have people, in our southern borders who are, their human rights are being forgotten. They're being abused. Their right to move, their right for asylum, their right to seek refuge and to immigrate are not being respected and are not being upheld. So immigration is a hot topic right now, and in all of the voices that are being heard when it comes to our immigration conversation, the indigenous voice hasn't been. And so I think, it's important for us to listen, to seek out, first of all, and listen to indigenous voices right now when it comes to immigration. What do our Native communities think? What do they see? What is their perspective? That's probably one of the ways that, again, so it's not even really like what can the Native community do, but it's more like we should seek out the Native perspective on this immigration conversation.
That should be like a AFN breakout session, or like, or a resolution, or, that would be really interesting to engage.
And there's some indications too, like some Native corporation, Alaska Native corporations might be funding ICE, and so so what's that like? So it can get really complicated and potentially painful quick, right?
Yeah.
But I think we need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely needed. Okay. Cool. I mean, that's great. I think you're right. I follow a lot of Native Americans on social media and stuff, like the, various sites or whatever that post cool memes and stuff. But there's a lot of people, I think, in opposition to what's going on, obviously, because it's just so inhumane. So it would be, but that's still, a lot of the people that I follow are down south. It's like, which is great, but like we just don't have a lot of conversations up here in Alaska about it, about, how do we feel about immigration? And so I think that's cool.
Yeah, especially because we talk about how diverse Alaska is, right? It's kind of strange that we're not talking about immigration here.
Yeah. But is there anything else that you would like to share?
Well, I think you're doing an amazing job.
Oh, thanks.
Keep going. I think you're engaging people to have conversations that I think are very important to have, or at least if they don't engage in the conversation, at least listen to these conversations, so they can think at least on their own about it. So thank you for putting your time and resources, into this.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't have any muck duck or anything because I ran out. Like, I ate it all.
It's all right. It's all right. We have some.
You do?
Good.
I
should have brought some. But if I wasn't rushing, I could have.
No.
I could have brought some.
That's okay. No, my mom comes through all the time, so she just brought some. So I had some. I ate it all. So I shouldn't really be apologizing, but yeah.
It's all right. It's okay.
Okay.
Appreciate you, and I appreciate the work that you do.
Gosh, we have so much to learn from all of our community members. Thank you, Koinakbak Ije. Dr. E.J. Ramos David is a professor of psychology at UAA with a rural, cultural, and indigenous emphasis. He's published